Everyone loves a bargain, and this is the one I picked up in the January sales, the Element Enduro Gatekeeper Builders Kit. Stay tuned. Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. So it's January 2022, tail end of. We've just had the January sales, and in those January sales I managed to pick up this, which is the Element Enduro Gatekeeper Builders Kit. I picked this up from Make It Build It in the UK, a company I've used quite a bit now, and I got this for £196, which I think is quite a bargain. Now, they normally seem to retail at about 240, 230-ish. You can see them occasionally a little bit less than that, but obviously in the sales you can pick them up closer to the £200 mark, and I think that's really good value for this. So what I'm going to do, not spend too much time on it, but because this truck's been out a couple of years now. It is obviously a sort of Ultra 4 style chassis. It was the introduction of the Gatekeeper suspension kit, which is that trailing arm suspension on the rear that works really well on the Element Enduro Ecto, which I have on the shelf. I really like the way this truck looks, and I have bought it really for the looks and for the fact that it was a bargain, but mainly because I like that kind of Ultra 4 style. I love watching the Ultra 4 racing, so I wanted to get one of these and I wanted to build it out like an Ultra 4. But before we get into that in too much detail, we'll just kind of have a look at some of the things on here. So as I mentioned before, this is the Gatekeeper suspension, so it's the trailing arm suspension. The nice thing about this builder's kit is it comes with some upgrades over and above the ready to run in terms of the chassis components and some of the plastics. I'll go over that in a second on the actual build itself. But other than that, it's basically an Element Gatekeeper. There's nothing too spectacularly different about it. So let's get the box open, let's get a look inside. Obviously this is a kit, so there's lots of bits in here, and we'll talk about whether that's a good thing or not. So let's open it up, see what we get in the box. So in here we have got, actually it wasn't in there, I've already built it. This isn't a build video, this is a pretty standard assembly really. The instructions are very good, we'll get into that in a bit. So I'm not doing a build video on it, but this is the finished article. So we'll start with the exterior. So it is, as we say, it's a cage build. It's styled after a Trent Fab 4400 class Ultra 4 truck, and I think they look great. I really do. I love the way these things look. It's pretty accurate, so really pleased with it. It doesn't come with the window nets. I've added those. They're 3D printed. If you're interested in those, I'll put a link in the description to where they came from. I bought the files for those. It was a couple of dollars, I think. Nothing major. I've printed some fire extinguishers, but I couldn't find any black zip ties, so they're currently purple. I've designed and printed a Ultra 4 light bar to go on the back. That does work, but they are static lights. I'll put a link to the Thingiverse files for that, because I've put those online already. And I've mounted up a spare wheel on the back. From a crawler performance perspective, that's a really bad idea. That's high up weight at the back, but from a looks, like I say, I'm going for looks with this predominantly. From a looks perspective, that works really well, I think. Really cheap little strap. And that's on a kind of hinged bracket that I've designed. I've done too tightly. So that does hinge up and out of the way if you want to get to something that's underneath there. So you could store some bits in there. I've got some fuel cans that I might put in there or something like that, but I don't know. We'll see. But otherwise, that's just kind of clamped onto the frame at the back there. Don't really intend to move that very often. Not least of all because I printed it in PLA, which will be quite brittle and probably break. So that's kind of the overview of the truck. I've done a custom paint job of it. As you can see, it's not the standard Element colours or anything like that, which are generally grey and green and black. I kind of originally was styling it after one of Bailey Cole's trucks, who's one of the drivers in the King of the Hammers and Ultra 44 class. 4400 class, sorry, but it's not that close to it at all really. It's similar colours, he's got a blue, red and white one, that's about it. But we've got some sort of custom graphics that I've done on the roof. You'll see more of those in the running videos. Really enjoying doing this custom graphics work at the minute. I'm not really getting any better at it since the Sherpa video, but you know, it doesn't stand up to close inspection, but from a few feet away, which is where most people are going to see it from, it looks great in my opinion. I've gone with Proline flat iron tyres because I had them spare, and I have bought some new bead locks for it, but I may buy some sort of deep dish ones, because one of the things with this I think is going to be a problem is sort of side hill and tipping over that way. So one of the issues I think with this kit is that the cage is quite narrow, and the axles, whilst they are standard width, I think, you know, they could probably do with being just a little bit wider, slightly wider stance, just to help to counter that sort of heavy body. So let's get inside and have a look. So one of the fantastic features I think about this is, you know, this is not a cage build like a Wraith or a Bomber where you have a real nightmare working on it and have to take it to bits basically to get to anything. This is a ladder chassis with a hinged body on the front. So that hinged body folds right out of the way and probably needs some sort of limiting strap, to be honest, to stop it putting all the weight of that cage onto that hinge at the front. That sort of feels like it's not going to last. So I need to put some kind of strap across there, I think. It's fairly simple in terms of electronics. It's a 3-channel receiver. It doesn't need to be any more than that because it's really only got 2 channels in operation. I'm running it with my 2200 milliamp packs, which only just fit. And I have got a 3D printed battery tray in there, because the original the battery doesn't fit in the original ones, and the wider battery tray doesn't fit in the cage. So it's a pretty close snug fit. You're not going to get anything much bigger than a 2200 milliamp hour pack, 3S that is. And they, for reference, they're sort of this kind of size, so they're not huge. You could use a normal shorty pack, which would give you a thicker battery, but not as long. You may get more runtime, but I'm quite happy with the runtime I get. I usually get about an hour out of these 2200 milliamp hour packs. I've gone with as much overdrive in the gearbox as I could out of the box, so that's at the 11%-ish. It's about 11.5%, I think. And I have gone with a Holmes Hobbies Crawlmaster Sport 12 turn, I think that is, 550 motor, with the standard size pinion that is recommended, which is the 18 tooth pinion. That actually the pinion out of my Ecto. My Ecto now has a 21 tooth pinion in it because it has the 1800 kV fusion in it, and it's a little bit slow. So hopefully that's going to work. I haven't tried it out yet, but that should give us a decent bit of wheel speed without being ridiculous, and also enable us to crawl nicely. These 5 slot Holmes Hobbies motors, they're only cheap. They're about £25 each, but they're really smooth and really good quality. I've had a lot of luck with them in the past, so I'm quite happy to be using that again here. And then the front end is where things are different from my normal setup. So ordinarily on my other crawlers, I have used a cheap and cheerful 25 kilo servo from Banggood that are £10 each, less than that in some cases. And I would have generally used the Hobbywing 1080 ESC in this for this kind of brushless build, brushed build. However, I'm trying 2 new things here. So thank you Danny and Jay, who answered the call when I put it out on Facebook in terms of a good priced. So my aim there was less than £50, a good priced waterproof servo that's fast and strong and all that kind of good stuff that you want from a servo. And they recommended the EcoPower 120T servo, which I'll put up on the screen. That is great. It is super fast, feels really strong, very pleased with that. Got that from A-Main, which, you know, as a UK buyer might put some people off, but actually I found at the moment A-Main to be really good. Their delivery is super cheap. In this case it was free. And it only takes just over a week to get here from the US. So, you know, I'm not too bothered by that. I think that's great, really good service. The second new thing I'm trying in here, which you probably can't see because it'll be buried under the wires, and I'm going to do a whole separate video on this, is the new ISDT ESC70. So this is a 70 amp brushed ESC, but it's a little bit different. It has a Bluetooth unit built into the power switch, which means you can connect to it with your mobile phone using an app and program it. It was a little bit fiddly and a bit of a pain to program. There are definitely some bugs in the software of the app, you know, the app software. So in terms of how good it is actually out on the trails and the rocks, not sure yet. I'm going to find that out when we take this out for its maiden run, which is going to happen tomorrow. I've run some wires for some light bars. So the Gatekeeper is a great kit in terms of the light bars, as it's already got mounting points on the roof and in the nose for Proline light bars, a 2-inch one in the front and a 4-inch one on the roof. Now the downside of that is those Proline light bars are quite pricey. You know, they're about 40 to 50 pounds in the UK, and that's quite a lot of money, I think. You know, £100 worth of light on a £200 truck seems a little bit too much to me. What I did instead was I bought some sort of cheap ones on eBay, put those in, and they are super bright, but they get absolutely roasting hot. They are too hot to touch after a few minutes of use. Now that is sitting on the bench, that's not with it running, but you know, it's not going to be running fast in a crawler, so there's not going to be a lot of airflow over it to cool it down. So I've taken the one off the roof at the moment because that got too hot. The smaller one in the nose is still there, but that does get very hot. So I probably am going to have to kind of pony up the money for the Proline light bars, but I'm not doing that this month. So we'll have to see about that in the future. So what is different about the Builders Kit over the RTR? Well, obviously with the Builders Kit you get to put your own electronics in, which is always good because invariably you're going to replace the electronics in the RTR, or at least some of them. Based on my experience with the Ecto, I would have wanted to replace the ESC. I think the motor they come with is pretty good actually. It's a 14-turn 5-slot Reedy motor, and that seems to be pretty good. But with my Ecto, I would have replaced the ESC pretty quickly, I think. I don't like it. It's too twitchy. It's not smooth. There is a programming card you can get for it, but I could never find anywhere that had any in stock. So you know, I just gave up with that and replaced it in the Ecto. And I burnt the stock servo out in the Ecto pretty quickly, and I suspect that would have happened again in the Gatekeeper. So the fact that I've not had to pay for RTR electronics that are then going to go in the bin, I think is a good thing. Now the other thing that's different about these over the RTR is the spec of the chassis and some of the stuff that comes with it. So if you know anything about element stuff, they always have on the market for the other Enduro builds this kind of hard plastic upgrades, hop-ups, whatever you want to call them, that you buy as aftermarket. Normally they come with a softer black plastic built in the kits, but with the Builders Kit, in this case it comes with the hard plastics. There's a lot of it on here actually. Let me see if I can show you. So the cage is the same. There's nothing different there, but as you can see all the way along the chassis, I think the shock towers are the hard one anyway normally, but we've got, you know, the rear bumper, the brace, the shock towers, the cross members for the shocks, the sliders, the skid is the same, is hard plastic as well. The battery trays wouldn't be, but the cross member that goes under the battery tray is. And again, the servo mounts and the front bumper mount as well. So it's quite a fair bit. Let's show you the underneath. Because the other thing that comes with this in this hard plastic is the axles as well. So this is all much harder plastic, in theory much tougher. I don't know whether that makes it more brittle, particularly in cold weather, which of course is what we've got at the minute in the UK. I'm hoping not, but we'll see. And that really is just about it. I don't think there's much else to tell you about this kit. We will see, you know, how those electronics stand up. They're, as I say, quite new. We'll see how the chassis components stand up. The other thing that's different, and this is a bit of a sneaky one actually. The Builders Kit comes with the factory team shock bodies. not factory team shocks. I looked at that previously and I thought they were the factory team shocks, so they would have been an all metal shock, but they're not. They've got the kind of bronze body, they've got an alloy adjustment ring, but all the rest is plastic, the same as the ones on the Ecto. So they might be a bit leaky, we'll see. You can buy the metal parts separately, but again, it's another 40 or 50 pounds. So let's button this up. I like the way the hinge works. There's just a couple of body clips in the back. They're a little bit awkward now because I put this on, but you know, that's my fault, not Element's. But that's it, that's the kit. Suspension, those shocks, although they're not the factory team ones, as with pretty much all Element shocks, they are pretty smooth and quite nice. It comes with the oil in the box, 30 weight oil or 350 CST, which feels about right, certainly on the back. I think the front might be a little bit stiff, we'll see how it goes. And it has the different rates of spring front to rear, so they are, I think, the white on the front, let me check. Yeah, white springs or white mark springs on the front and the blue mark springs on the back, which is again the same as the Ecto. So there we go. That's the kit, all built up, ready to go. Only thing to do really is get it out there and see how it runs. So this video is already getting a little bit long, so what I'm going to do is just voice over this running footage a little bit, just to give you some thoughts on how I think it went, rather than have an outro at the end. One thing I've got to say before we start is this running footage is not, and I repeat, not the ISDT ESC70. That thing caused me no end of problems on the bench. Thankfully I tested it the night before I did a 50-mile drive to Black Rocks, and it just wouldn't power up on 3S. It will power up on 2S. It doesn't save the settings when I change it and tell it it's on 3S, and then it won't power up. So I'm going to get in touch with ISDT about that. It's Spring Festival in China at the moment, so they're not responding at the minute. As soon as they do, I'll let you know. But anyway, I really enjoyed driving this truck. So I went yesterday to Black Rocks near Matlock in Derbyshire. As you can see, it's a pretty cool spot. There's some really gnarly lines on there, but you know, the Gatekeeper did really well considering it's got that fairly heavy cage on the top and the extra weight of a spare wheel and some other bits and pieces and an interior. It really did well. It is a bit tippy on side hills. There are some sections where that extra weight at the top, you can really tell it's there. But it's not too bad, and once you get used to it, you can kind of drive out of some of those situations reasonably easily. I think I will probably try and widen the track a little bit with some deep dish wheels. I did buy those silver alloys specifically for this vehicle, but I'm sure they can go on something else because they're pretty cool wheels, I like them. But I'm going to get some deep dish wheels. I've seen a set on AliExpress, they're really cheap, they're about £15, so I think it's worth getting them just to try. The flat iron tyres did really well. In one of my earlier videos some time ago, I didn't criticise them as such, but I didn't give them credit for being as good as they are. They are a great tyre, I really enjoyed driving them. I didn't have really any traction problems at all with them on any of the terrain. And as you can see from the video, we did rocks and loose sandy mud and tree roots and all sorts of things, so they really kind of stood up to that. But the real star was the Gatekeeper, absolutely. So a friend that came along brought his Sandero HD and his modified Ecto, and you know, the Gatekeeper was keeping up very nicely with those, no problems at all really. Some areas that I could get with the Gatekeeper that actually the Ecto didn't manage, but you know, different lines, different drivers, all of that sort of stuff, but it did really well. Really pleased with it. So I'm going to close out the video, or at least my voice, leave you with some of the driving footage. I hope you enjoyed this video. There'll definitely be more stuff on the Gatekeeper. I'm going to drive it a lot, I can tell, because I really love the way it looks and I really like the way it drives. So hopefully you found this video helpful and enjoyable. If so, as always, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. We're perilously close to 1,000 subscribers now, I'm really so happy about that. So thank you everybody that's subscribed so far. I really do appreciate it. It kind of makes it feel like all of this effort is worthwhile. So we'll come back soon with some more Gatekeeper videos. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the footage.